Secretary of State Antony Blinken then met with Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu earlier today. Let's take a listen.
We share Israel's goal of defeating Hamas, which is responsible for the worst massacre of the Jewish people since the Holocaust. And we share the goal of ensuring Israel's long-term security. As we've said, though, a major military ground operation in Rafah is not the way to do it.
Joining me now to discuss, human rights attorney Brooke Goldstein. Also with us, former media director at the Israeli Consulate of New York, Jake Novak. Jake, Russia and China, they have Israel's back more than the United States. They vetoed the resolution. Your reaction?
Well, I wish that were the reason. Actually, they vetoed it, even though it was anti-Israel. It wasn't anti-Israel enough for those guys. So saved by the bell, so to speak. But you know what, honestly, I wish that the reason for this was the votes in Michigan and Minnesota. That's not what's going on here. The reason is this administration and the Obama administration before it are pro-Iran. It's time for the American people to understand this. I know that the AP political science teacher in us wants to teach our kids about the electoral votes in these swing states, but honestly, when those states weren't a factor, when Obama was president, he was supporting the Iran deal. He was staying quiet about the pro-democracy movement in Iran in 2009. He was shutting down a major FBI investigation of Hezbollah here in the United States. That had nothing to do with Michigan and Minnesota. This is a pro-Iran administration. And Secretary Blinken saying that he wants the destruction of Hamas, that's a lie. Because if Hamas is destroyed, Iran will tumble within a year because all of its proxy armies will turn on them, and that's their whole reason for existence. The American people need to know this is a pro-Iran administration, full stop.
Absolutely. The head of the snake there is Iran. Now, Brooke, a dozen family members of American hostages held in Gaza also met with Blinken. 8 Americans, including the remains of 3 Americans, are still being held by Hamas. What is Joe Biden doing to free Americans? Why doesn't he care about American citizens?
Well, first of all, Lydia, I want to thank you for having me so much. And I just want to echo what Jake said. I'm so grateful for his moral clarity. What he said is absolutely true. This is not just an administration that is pro-Iran. This is an administration that is trying to get the world to pressure Israel, the only Western democracy in the Middle East on the front lines of terror, to appease terrorism. And it is an exercise in total futility, and it is so short-sighted because the terrorist groups and the mother of all terrorists, which is Iran, and number 2, Qatar, which is what the United States is also trying to appease, are watching very closely. If they sponsor and allow terrorist attacks to happen against Western democracies, if there's a terrorist attack in Paris or Belgium or, God forbid, in the United States, are we going to then turn around and reward those terrorist groups? That is the signal we are sending. And the laws of cause and effect have just been thrown up in the air. People forget there was a ceasefire on October the 6th, and Hamas is the one who broke that. And under no circumstances should Israel stop pursuing Hamas until they exist no more, because the #1 victims of the Hamas terrorist group are the Palestinian Muslim people who have been living under the brutality of Hamas since 2005, and which they are currently using as human shields. And I will end with this. If the world cared about Palestinian Muslim civilians, they would then call for humanitarian relocation of these civilians so that we could get rid of Hamas terrorist group.
Well said there. Brooke, Jake, thank you so much for joining us both. Thank you.
My pleasure.